Welcome back to the follow-up, everyone. My name is Katie Robinette, and I'm here with my trusty sidekick.
I'm JoséJohnson.
And this is episode number 5. And the follow-up, we dive into worlds of events and the things that happen behind the scenes, the things that are funny, the unusual things we run into, and the positive and interesting conversations we have to uplift our fellow vendors.
Yeah.
So we're excited. Now, Kelly, I am sorry, I meant to ask beforehand. How do you pronounce your last name?
Dantinne.
Okay. We have Kelly Dantinne with us. She is the owner of the beautiful Excelsior, which is a beautiful venue in downtown Lancaster, one of our very favorite venues to play. And I will tell you why. The reason I love it so much is because it's almost like stepping into like 6 different venues. Like you have so many beautiful spaces to utilize. Mm-hmm. It's not just one, and they're all vastly different. And so I can see how a client would want to choose to come there, because it's almost like every room you step into, it's a different feeling. It gives a different ambiance for the crowd. So I really love the venue. We get to play there maybe twice a year, which is always exciting for us. But I want to dive in. Kelly, about a month ago, you sent us a lot of documentation. Mm-hmm. I'm sure a lot of the things that you send your couples. Mm-hmm. But the property itself has a lot of rich history. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of tell our audience about that rich history?
Oh, that's great. Well, Excelsior is very old. 1852 is when it started, with the Sprenger, Sprenger, Sprenger Brewery, at the property, which is 125 East King Street. And at that time, it was John A. Sprenger that started a brewery. There were a lot of rich German roots in Lancaster County, immigrants who farmed and brewed with the agricultural. And this was a brewery that started then. And then in 1873, John A. Sprenger started Excelsior Hall, which was a place where people could eat, drink, and be merry, drink the beer. This is back when it was horse and carriage days. And they would stop on the road from Gettysburg to either Philadelphia, Baltimore, or Washington, D.C. on the Lincoln Highway East, and to rest the horses and to...
was it an inn?
It was an inn.
Okay.
It was a tavern. And they would stay overnight. I mean, you couldn't get there that fast because it was horse and carriage. You had to rest the horses, put them in the stables, and then they would stay overnight there and get up the next morning and move on. But this was a place where they could eat and dine. And Lancaster was very vibrant back then, a place there was hundreds of taverns, and this was before the antitrust laws that kind of wiped out the microbrews because the bigger breweries came in and kind of took over. But that was the roots and the beginning and the vibrancy of the property. And after that, I think it was 1900s, it got taken over by a furniture company, Westenberger, Miley and Malley, I think it was, and until about the time when the malls started upspringing in the 70s, wiping out the downtowns as so many other different cities. And then it was vacant for 40 years.
Wow.
So we had squirrels, bats, broken windows, all kinds of crazy stuff. And the city proposed in 2007, I want to say, do you want to take this over? They approached my husband, John, and we there and then decided that we wanted to kind of save. We did not know how to resurrect in what capacity the property, because we owned the property behind it. So it was the whole footprint from King Street back to Grant Street with the stables and the carriage house. So it was an interesting thing. It wasn't an albatross. We waited 2 years, and then we walked through with Rod Shoemaker, who was a tenant of ours, who owns, another company that does a lot of stuff.
A lot of lovely things in Lancaster County and beyond.
And and Rod said, John, maybe you should make this an events venue.
Interesting. I didn't know Rod had a little piece and making that
And
history.
So John crunched the numbers. I looked at the property and said, how do we design this? So, you didn't have a lot of designing to do with an events venue. It's not like you're going to interior design it's 35,500 square feet of property, which is a lot.
Yeah.
We use a lot of it for storage now, but we use, I would say, 2/3 of it for the events venue. So you have a venue today that is 5 interconnecting spaces of indoor outdoor, which couples love and clients, corporate clients love, for this unique 1 block from the square of Lancaster property where you can host a party, a good sized party, 1 couple one day, 1 company one day, all yours. You move throughout these spaces and it becomes this incredible, one of a kind kind of events venue.
There's really nothing like it.
Yeah.
No other venue I've even worked with in DC, Philadelphia, Northern Virginia region is anything like it. It's very, very unique. I want to ask, does Excelsior mean anything?
It does.
Onward, upward.
Very good. It's Latin.
Yes.
And it means onward and upward, to excel, exceed beyond. And one of our mantras is to exceed beyond expectations. We say that a lot, but more importantly, we demonstrate it a lot through various aspects of catering, even down to a spreadsheet. Or right now we're dealing with our 10th year going into business, like things that we could just tweak and make better, logistically, aesthetically, all that good stuff. And it means a lot when you still, as an owner and the embodiment of the culture, which has become our managers and the people who believe in us, they're not just what we call lifers, they're stakeholders, and you move on and we've generated it and we've displayed it and we believe in it and it's become part of the culture. Believing is doing. And so we do Excelsiorize. That's one of our hashtags. Okay. Excelsiorize, maximize on that meaning. And, as tough as the day may be in any industry, you can't go from great to greater, good to best. Good, better, best. It's just you have to keep going. Yeah, it is.
It is a slow climb.
And you go up and you go down, but in the end, it's like the most important thing is that you're all going up.
Yeah. Wedding business in general, up and down, up and down, up and down, and it's almost an emotional roller coaster sometimes. But you always, it's always best to stay optimistic about it. And sometimes I get myself down in the dumps, but you can't do that. Yeah. And I know darn well, because I'm the queen of fostering or fostering what I need, but you have to have positivity for that to happen.
It's hospitality all the way.
Yeah, for sure.
Tough as a day you may be having, you're still there to answer and gratify, hug if a hug is needed, just encourage everybody, the team. It's all about the client and it's all about the team and it's all about the whole picture. It won't work if it doesn't happen in every aspect.
Yeah. And it's extra hard. I think it's extra hard for a business owner because you feel like it's your responsibility to rise everyone up around you.
Well said.
Yeah. Oh. Well, and it's I think especially difficult in a leadership position, an ownership position, because you have to straddle that fine line between the people and the profit. So if the business isn't profitable, you can't maintain what you're doing. But if you, as too many people in leadership roles do, when they minimize the people, then you burn them out and you ruin goodwill. And so when you need people to actually step up, they have a lot of hesitancy to do that. So
yeah, it's a fine line of believing and another line of embracing.
Yeah.
And if you get them to embrace, and I'm dealing with that even just today, moving forward into 2025, finding out somebody just embraced, they believed, but that just took me above and beyond about a couple hours ago to find that out. And it's so true. You cannot build greatness and it's not mediocrity, because in our business, there's a lot of young people and they're still growing up. Mm-hmm. They might have gotten out of high school. They might have gone to school for something, but in catering, which is the front end of our business, and it's a tough way to define how it's and it goes up and down and up and down, like you said. But when you get to that point, you're like, oh man, we've accomplished something here, and they're in it to win it. And it's not about the profit at that point. It's about the ultimate true understanding and belief, and they become a part of that message, and they become a part of that understanding more than anything. And they live and breathe it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. One question I do have for you is I'd kind of like to know, in your role as an owner of a venue, what does your day-to-day look like for yourself?
Well, that's good. Then that's different from what it was, 9 years ago when we were rolled out.
Yeah.
And then 3 years later, and then 5 years later, here we are at 9 years. And my day-to-day has always been front-loaded, in that it was the sale, making sure we were out there, in the proper media, like to speak to I think we're more a wedding venue, but we do an awful lot of corporate, and now we're able to go out with the catering to off premises.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so we're doing an awful lot of corporate things on their site or social things at their house.
Interesting.
And so that's the catering, but we have the chops for it now. We didn't in the beginning. The design, my graphic background, my illustrative advertising background.
Yes, you do have a background in marketing.
Yeah, I had an advertising agency for about 13 years, and then I was doing solo stuff. So graphic design and marketing and branding has been
that is also
years.
My background, which is why I feel like it's almost like you have a major leg up when you have that in your wheelhouse.
Because you want to get to know what the business is, whether for me it was flooring and healthcare and package design and logos, And you have to, think about a logo. You have to crunch it down. Now it's easy. You can just go online. But back in the day before that, and now we have AI.
Yeah.
My God, you're
an illustrator spending hours and hours.
Yeah. And you had to really understand what the message was and what was the essence of it. And that was the beginning of branding. And, advertising is one thing. Marketing and branding is another thing, but to understand that in this business, I feel like this is a 3-dimensional canvas. I'm doing more interior designing than illustrate. I mean, I was still drawing on the elevator wall at Excelsior, for crying out loud, and I painted myself into a corner. We have calligraphers now that come in and do that, but we think that's important. A messaging is very important on a big day event.
So I think what she's talking about here is they have this chalkboard. You have this chalkboard in their elevator that takes them between the first floor and the second floor, and guests will sometimes write their names and their well wishes on it. And then I guess sometimes you have somebody that comes in and creates artwork on it.
It used to be me, and it would be ridiculous. I'd go all the floor.
So you're an artist as well.
Yeah. So that's getting to understand and design, and when you illustrate, you are trying to tell a story.
You've always had very tasteful branding and marketing, and I meant to bring in your beautiful ad, which I have in my car right now. Dropping the ball today.
We'll just insert it.
I'll insert it later. But you have a beautiful ad on the back of Susquehanna Style Weddings magazine. It's gorgeous. A picture of a beautiful bride and groom in front of
courtyard.
the courtyard area where there are beautiful plants cascading down. Just a gorgeous venue. Let's talk about some of the spaces that you have.
Love it. I knew you were going to go there, girl.
So one of my favorite spaces is the catacombs, which is, I'm assuming, where the original brewery was.
Yep. 1852. That's the catacombs, 3.5 feet thick limestone wall arched vaults. That is called a brewer's vault or a catacomb. Before refrigeration, that's how you kept the beer cold. In the corner north vault is a little hole where the stovepipe where John Springer created the mash. And I mean, it's just, and they have little vents in the side. It's a very big selling point. A unique kind of think sexy martini, you know. Yeah.
And that's where the vendors get to hide and eat their vendor meals.
I thought that's why you were going to say it was your favorite place.
Maybe.
It's got a great
Who doesn't like to eat food?
Yeah, it's a beautiful, very unique space.
Yep. And they use that a lot for your cocktail hours. They also have the courtyard outside. And I believe you just added to that. Did you?
The pergola on well, it wasn't just. It was a while ago. We added that arch pergola. We were following the arches of the catacomb and the arches of the doors that were added. To look at the before and after pictures of Excelsior is like, who the heck would take this on? We did. The city was behind us because of the economic development of the city. I mean, you bring 200 to 800 people a weekend. To Lancaster, where are they going to dine? Where I mean,
that's bringing in a lot.
Yeah. And we tell them to go to local restaurants and local.
When you're the perfect location to do that to,
it's a destination.
Sending people to the Marriott, sending people down to Tellus to see a show, sending people to,
all the restaurants. And it's walkable. Lancaster is so walkable. We even tell people, fly into Philly International Airport, take the SEPTA to the 30th Street station, leave the car at home, get up here from the 30th to Lancaster. You're 8 blocks away. Get an Uber, go downtown, and you don't need a car. It's just so perfect and convenient and charming. Yeah. They say it's the little Brooklyn. I don't know. I say it's always the Lancaster.
Yeah.
And it's good like that. Yeah. And people it's cute when couples are done at the end of the day. They see what couples that have been married in Lancaster at other places downtown at these various, restaurants and bars. And it's just so happy in wedding season.
Yeah.
Which is really anywhere from March until mid-January. Yeah. And then we all kind of take a little break.
Which well-deserved break. I'm enjoying my little break as we speak. I'm enjoying my weekends.
I know.
Sleeping in, don't have to worry about anything. But some of the other, the Grand Salon, it's a very large, long room. That's usually where the DJs and the bands set up and the dancing occurs. Occasionally, we'll have dinner down there.
Sometimes it's all in there. It depends on your head count.
Depending on your head count.
Yeah, our head count is 150. That's the sweet spot. We are like 120, 135 on a Friday, 120 low season on a Sunday. 150 is the Saturday, which is always the coveted. That's the minimum, but we serve up to 275, all seated for dinner. And we've done as many as for a corporate or a mingling kind of event. I think we've had at least 500 people in there.
Wow.
In
the Grand Salon.
Yeah. Well, no, just moving throughout the place. But if anybody wants to sit down and have a dinner, 275 is the absolute maximum. Upstairs on the second floor, and then they moved down to the Grand Salon. Yep. So Empire Room down to the Grand Salon, which is the beautiful tin ceiling, and that's where things rock out. That's where the 3Ds, dancing, drinks, and desserts.
And there's a grand staircase. I mean, there's all the things you would ever want. So we usually do when I MC a wedding, we usually introduce our couples, and they come down this beautiful grand staircase where we get just the photographers just get such gorgeous photos of the couples, and they come onto the dance floor, and we usually do right into their first dance from there.
It's beautiful.
So it's really wonderful.
It's nice that you're emceeing that because you get the whole ta-da.
There is something about doing that and experiencing that and being a part of that and seeing the faces. And we talk about it all the time, being the wedding band and actually performing what the couples have, asked us to do, something that's near and dear to the heart. And you can always see it on their faces when we're performing.
Aww.
And so we always leave feeling very fulfilled about,
and they
what we do.
Turn. Yeah.
So,
that's sweet.
So yes, that's awesome. Apart from spaces, what I want to ask you is, do you have a most memorable story about a particular wedding that you've had at the Excelsior?
Wow. Well, they're all so near and dear, but the early ones are always the ones that touch your heart first, because it's kind of like the first time you gave birth to something, if you will. I would have to say in the early stages, it was the Butterworth, because the Butterworth family came to us with their daughter and then a couple years later with their second daughter. And they were, I'm not going to mention first names, but those Butterworth weddings were so, we would pop champagne when they become, this was crazy.
Isn't it amazing to have clients and you watch the growth of their family after once you have a client that you've been through so much with, it's almost like you become,
we grew from that.
Friends.
Yeah. And they kind of made us feel like, you do become close friends. And they kind of made us feel like, wow. And even the very first one, when we even had a temporary opening, the Denlinger wedding was just like, oh my God, this is our first one. And we were getting through code. And you talk about a building that's been like down and not a lot, and going through the code and fire code and historical. We had to have every window in Excelsior go to Washington, D.C. to be approved.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, hysterically.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
I would imagine. That was one of my questions I wanted to ask you earlier on, but like, what kind of hoops did you have to jump through I know you have to follow a particular protocol because it's a historical building. You probably have to bring in particular contractors that know how to.
An architect for sure with that type of historical.
Yeah. And
Carol Hickey.
And I had a friend recently asking me if I knew anybody who worked with historical properties. And I said, I have no idea. And I've been asking around and nobody can seem to come up with anyone. You'd probably be a great person to ask.
Well, my husband John would, because he knew what he needed. He needed that architectural stamp, and she knew how to go through that, and she had the local connections. But downtown Lancaster was really jonesing for Excelsior to succeed.
Yeah.
And so typically John was the GM, or our nephew was the project manager, Travis, and away they went with this thing. Dan Ott was the Ott Construction is all over Lancaster now. This was their baby. This was like, we were all pouring concrete and wearing, they were gold hard hats with Excelsior.
Of course.
We had to start classic. But we all were really intrigued by this, very unique situation to resurrect something that had been sleeping for that many years. And the city was behind it because they wanted it to happen. So answers got answered quickly. And you still have to make code, though. It's for the safety of the people inside the property as it becomes, ready and running. But it was so magical. It feels like yesterday. It feels like we were going to do this and people looked at us like we were Martians. And then when we first succeeded, and then maybe 10 weddings after that, we were visionaries. It was just that overnight and the respect, but it didn't mean like we were going to start to act like we knew what we were doing. We had and still have a lot to learn, to grow and to evolve and always be on the front side of this kind of business. So it wasn't easy, but it was fun.
But it was fun
along the way. And it's still fun as long as you stay ahead of it just a little bit and not get bogged down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I started my business 8 years. I started Robin Banks Entertainment 8 years ago, and in Central City Orchestra 8 years ago. But I remember, I'm curious if you went through the same anxieties that I did when we first started up. And probably the first 2 years, I would lose sleep for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Weeks before a wedding occurred because it was new to me.
Nervous.
I was nervous. I was petrified of missing something or forgetting something or messing something up. And I would lose sleep for weeks over anxiety.
That's because you're a perfectionist.
Okay.
And man, girl, there's nothing wrong with that when you grow and you still keep doing that and other people are hanging onto your coattails. Other brides and grooms are glad you did that.
Yeah.
They're glad. I dream about it still. I mean, I dream about something because it's in the back of my mind, but you should never be overconfident. Never.
Well, I've definitely lost a lot of the anxious piece. I've over the years, I've learned to kind of chill out a little bit. And I have a great team, so we almost work like clockwork. Like people know the system. They know how we do things. I don't have to worry about, hey, we've got to cover 15 additional minutes of music because the bride's not ready to be introduced yet. I can tell the band, we need 50 more minutes. Let's go. And it's not an anxiety anymore. Because we're kind of a well-oiled machine at this point.
We've walked the walk.
We've learned a lot. So I've taught myself to chill out a little bit and to roll with the punches.
But you're still You're still poised. You're still poised for something crazy to happen.
But that's true. Yeah,
and you'll be able to handle it.
Yeah, no, you've got to be able to pivot at any second.
Yep, that's it.
Well, what I find to be interesting is, in our earlier conversation about Excelsior, about choosing that name and choosing the concept and making that kind of the mantra, I can see how that helped you through those early stages of a development where you don't really know what you need to do. You just know how you want it done.
Yeah.
And so having that vision of whatever we do and whatever we need to do, we're going to do it with this passion and we're going to do it.
And pass it on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's weird because that name, until I looked it up and I started developing the brand and the gold and the black and the image of King Excelsior, which is not even, it's that face that's down in the courtyard, which is actually from another property downtown Lancaster on Queen Street. It's just a little crazy looking wacky man. And he's not, what's he, Bacchus? He's not Leaf Man. He's just this, and he has a brother over in the Hager Arcade. But I looked at this place and I thought, this place could be haunted or we can embrace it. And I started to salvage tin. We started to salvage glass. We started to salvage all kinds, doors. And there was very few things left on that property because it had been pilferaged. Over the years, things they couldn't pick up, like a 200-pound corbel from, that still exists. But we took what we did and we repurposed it. And I always used to say, well, we're keeping the spirits happy. And I'm not like that kind of a person, but I thought, it'll help me along the way to not overdevelop the property, to keep it. And John was really good about this. Just even the patina on the walls, it's got crackle. It's got the Victorian character. Yeah, and it even has signatures up on the second floor of Victorian wallpaper hangers, and they date it, 1897 before they put the paper over it. That's kind of the stuff that we were like, you don't want to paint over this. You want to go over that tin, let the patina show. But all that stuff is like kind of comes into play in how do we preserve, it's a chameleon. And we kept it so eclectic like that. And we use that word a lot. Eclecticness or eclecticity is something that, you can bring mid-century modern furniture in there. You can, and it works. It's just that receiving of, because we took it bare and we didn't, even down to like, shoemaker comes in with chandeliers. They could be Edison, they could be the Russian, and they could be the classic, this and that. There's like 6 different chandeliers that you could rent. And so we didn't want to put it in because it would make it a permanent kind of look that might not go with.
Sure.
So it gives the girls, the grooms and the brides, and anybody opportunity to add that, but they don't need it. It's fine without it, and it has its own, because of code, proper lighting that is still great, but you can add to it or not. It creates this wonderful bare canvas that happens to be historically incredibly beautiful. And like you said, so many different spaces to move around, and it's really quite unique in that regard, and generous for somebody to have an event there, be it a wedding, be it a corporate event, be it a fundraiser. We're doing an awful lot of fundraisers.
That's good. That's great.
Yeah, it helps them do what they need to do, and we're just off.
It's kind of crossed my mind a little bit. I'm sorry. You had something on your brain there.
Hold it.
It's kind of crossed my mind a little bit, like, boy, I would like to own a venue one day, or maybe I would like to do this or that. I don't know, but my hands are so busy in what I'm doing as it is. But for someone out there that might be aspiring to own their own wedding venue, do you have any words of wisdom for them?
Wow.
Don't quit your day job.
No, that's a good start, because we, neither of us did to a certain extent. It is a huge investment. Financially, and definitely emotionally, and organizationally even more so. I mean, the ops that is involved in the logistics with running a business like that, it's not a rest. Well, I'm into the catering part of it now, so that's offered. But if it's the brick and mortar, you're going to be faced with, say, you have a choice of caterers that will come in, because they're going to want food. And if you're not doing it yourself, you're going to need to hire or offer your, clientele. You can choose from this, and this. And we were only in that for 2 years in the beginning, and it wasn't working for us. If somebody comes to an event venue and the food is bad, or it is not done properly, guess who gets the bad review?
Correct. Yeah.
And that's where we stepped in and we just said, we do nothing about it. That was probably the scariest plunge. The brick and mortar itself is it's just a really, and it's become more and more, the market share is just even greater now. Everybody wants to get into it. They have a building, a property, a barn, particularly in Lancaster County, or a manor, if you will. It is not easy. I think if I could show you the gray hairs, it is. I thought advertising was hard. It's competitive, but it's nothing like this.
Well, from our perspective, because every weekend, multiple times a weekend, often, we're in different venues.
So you see.
So we get to see the differences. And we obviously love playing at the Excelsior. It's great.
We got to get you there more.
I know. What do we got to do? What do we got to do?
Yeah,
Figure it out.
We'll be the house band.
Yeah.
But, it's like we've been at some places that are pristine, everything is perfect, and
homogenized.
Very homogenized, exactly. And then we've been at places where maybe the venue itself is beautiful and wonderful. The grounds are wonderful, but it's not conducive to having the kind of event that people are being hired. There's not a stage, there's not ample electricity, there's all these things. So it hasn't been well thought out. And one of the things I love about the Excelsior is that everything
has been thought out, I feel like.
Everything, and even like you were saying, some of this is kind of flying by the seat of your pants at the beginning, but everything works. It's like the load in is easy. The sound is easy.
Yes.
Front door. Bands, DJs have to walk maybe 20 feet a little bit further to plug into the audio system. But the bands, they love it, and they come in sound check. And John's usually always there.
If somebody's usually there for sound check.
Yeah, and he just thinks bands are, just it.
It's wonderful. There's all the different spaces. There's great photo ops, and it's just everything
multifaceted.
Works.
Yeah.
So when I first worked at Excelsior, my first thought was, how am I going to, because of the different spaces, I thought, how am I as an MC going to shift people back and forth? I call them the cats. How are you going to herd the cats?
Yeah.
But what the Excelsior has done is they've put in a PA system that you can hear from every room in the building. So you can make an announcement, from any place for anybody to hear. So it's very conducive to getting your guests, your bridal party to the next space.
They can hear it at happy hour where you need to be moving next in the next 5 or 10 minutes, and not obnoxious.
And not obnoxious.
It's a Clare Brothers system. So we spent a lot of money on that audio system, and John wanted it that way so that it would operate that way, not just for DJs, which that audio system is but to plug into, because bands have their own, but that
and
system,
there's a system also set up outside for use during ceremony, which is super convenient. So you don't have to pay for a separate PA system from your band or your DJ, and you can just bring your phone or your computer or whatever it is and plug that in,
and that makes a lot of sense too, beyond weddings to corporate events.
Sure.
They're all over the place. We had Coach Franklin there, and that drew, I think, 600 people.
Wow.
That was many years ago in our formative years. And to move that level of people around, it's a big property, but that audio helps so much. And if it's crisp and it's clear, we're always checking things. From the elevator, you have to make sure everything's running smoothly. Wi-Fi, the whole 9 yards, and making it clear to people. This is, the password.
Yep. And it's highly accessible to anyone. It's highly accessible. If someone's in a wheelchair, they can access every space.
Yeah.
There are ramps. There's an elevator. So it's convenient for any type of guest that you might have. So it's wonderful. And because we have been to so many venues. We've been to venues all over Philadelphia and DC and Northern Virginia area where we've seen the complications that they can have when it comes to moving guests into different locations, maybe the challenges they have with guests with a disability or an older guest.
And I get those emails all the time from somebody that's attending an event there, and I'll answer them personally within 5 minutes. The quicker you answer an inquiry and just like rapid fire, to me, that is the way I want to be treated. If you treat your guests to be your guests, not way beyond the client, if you treat them that way, the way you want to be treated, you'll just be fine. You want that answer, you want that hospitality, you want that, that kind of level of a venue that you have to have ADA compliance.
Sure.
But to answer that we are ADA compliant to a certain person's thing, it's just like, don't not answer that. Make them feel confident. Tell them where the drop off is and where the garage is. So that's important. Little details, little things collectively go far beyond big things.
Well, and that ties in with your theme of excellence. Because excellence, was it Aristotle? Well, actually, it wasn't him. It was someone who did was writing a book on philosophers, and he condensed his philosophy into saying that you are what you repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is a habit.
Very good.
So I think so many people think about the big things are the things that make you excellent. You know, like a big parking lot or big sound system or things like that. That's no, it's the little things. And it's how one of my favorite sayings is how you do anything is how you do everything. So if you have that spirit of excellence, that even the smallest detail, not being anal retentive or micromanaging, but if you take pride in everything, if you always do your best at everything you do, those small things create those big experiences which become life-changing.
That makes you a natural. Like that. That makes you a natural.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff.
I'm
getting a little
Little clap there.
You guys.
You got some spilkus in your Connecticut.
You're so teaching me. Oh my God. You know, you can never stop learning.
He's my life coach, so
I love it. I can see the
Taking clients.
I love it.
JoséJohnson taking clients.
Anyone in the wedding industry or the events industry, I'll be your go-to guy.
So gripping. I love it. The takeaway is beyond 100%.
So is there anything that you want to kind of put out there to our audience or to the universe that maybe we haven't talked about yet? I know you just told me earlier you have a new property.
What?
A little baby.
Okay. Tell us about this little baby.
The little baby actually is 2 years old, and it's called the Water Gallery. When COVID was kind of at its thing, John, my husband, went out and bought a property and never told me about it until about 2 months later.
You didn't get in trouble for that? No.
And it's like came up in a conversation. By the way, I bought you a gallery. So we on Water Street and Prince Street, 112 North Prince Street, which the back end is Water Street across from Zootropolis. He bought this building that had 4 apartments in it and a retail space in the front, which was Christiane David, a well-known Lancaster artist. And she was looking to kind of move somewhere else and, you know, kind of downsize, if you will. And this property came along. So this was 2 years ago. And we thought about, you know, what we were going to do. What are we going to do with it? Just like we were approached with, what are we going to do with Excelsior in 2007? And it was something that we thought, where can people have
micro weddings?
Well, more than that, rehearsal dinners. Micro weddings are we're okay, and we do them, and we do bridal showers there, and we do baby showers there, and we do anniversary parties and birthday parties and just all kinds of business things and little. It was a smaller, we don't call them small, we call them intimate. And it was someplace where you could have, instead of 130 to 275, this was more smaller, intimate, where you could have an event for minimum of 25, a maximum of 65 for a seated, 70 for a mingling. And it's an indoor-outdoor experience. We gutted the back of it. So we have a sunken courtyard, a pergola, lots of greenery and outdoor spaces. But if it rains or if it's inclement weather, we have an indoor space. We call it the Water Gallery because it's on Water Street. We have a water theme. We have a 10-foot high and a 30, I think it's 20 or 30 feet long water wall that trickles water down. So it's beautiful out there. Come inside and there's this beautiful floor that has colors, you know, kind of like a concrete floor that it mixes the colors. So the environment is kind of bistro. Okay. Not super formal, but this is where our catering company can come in and service a rehearsal dinner, a bridal party, a baby shower, a whatever. Corporate event. We are having corporate meetings there during weekdays. Nice. But now that we have our catering, we have a huge catering kitchen, now we can service that confidently. You know, you don't grow too fast because that you could fall on your face. Yep. But now we're there, and so we're getting a name for ourselves. We have a lot of different clients that have come to know us, and we've got a really good product in that regard. So that little baby has become a huge success. So we're really in 2025 going to try to figure out how to market that best, because we're poised for being able to fulfill, that sort of clientele. You can't take on more. But upstairs is a big studio, which is where I'm pulling a little bit away from Excelsior. I'm not into the day-to-day. I'm on the front side in the sales and the contracts and the insurance side of things. But I'm not down at every event setting up stations and things like that. So I'm going back to my original God-given talent of being an illustrator, being an artist, being someone who tells stories.
Going back to your roots.
Kids. And we have a tenant, Nooks Books, and they're in the front, and all of a sudden I'm finding myself illustrating kids' books.
Oh, nice.
So I have my first one coming out hopefully this summer.
Another author here with us today.
I love it.
Jose is also an author.
Yes. Are you right? It's so great connecting with people. I love little people. I have grandchildren now, and I to my own children, you tell stories at night to relax them. I find them imaginative. Like this bookstore came our way, and there's little people there who have inspired me, and I'm off to something I did when I was in my 20s, wrote an illustrated book out in California, came back here, put it on the shelf, never touched it. I have 4 more illustrations to do. I want to launch it this summer. So, yeah, you got to keep moving, keep doing stuff. There's no place that you need to stay. You could just keep building. And if you build it right, you can let people that can build and want to build with you do that, and you can go on build other things, like build and grow and dream.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. One of my favorite sayings is live to dream.
Oh, I love that.
That's just, I've always been a dreamer.
And that is the drive. And it's the thing that Excelsior is. That's the thing. Yeah. I love it. Yeah, keep going.
Thanks. I'm going to try. I'm going to do my best.
You already are.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, if our listeners are out there and they want to learn more about the Excelsior, where can they go to find more information?
Go to our website. That's probably the first and most important thing. If you're just anything in general, we have a place you can sign up. Excelsior, EXCELSIOR, Lancaster, LANCASTER.com.
I'll put that in our comments. So
and in there you'll find all kinds of pictures, all kinds of information. You'll find about the water gallery. You can go to theknot.com, which most brides to be recently engaged. I would say 85% of our leads are from the knot.
We'll have to have a conversation about this after. Because it's different for me.
Yeah. And maybe because the venue is the gateway.
It's the gateway. It's the number one.
And so I'm lucky for that. I mean, I did start early, and I think that South Central Pennsylvania and Philadelphia was important. We tried New York, but it was too big of a reach, and it was very expensive. But we find that we're getting it. We still get people from New York.
Yeah, you get a lot of
Brooklyn, and
you get a lot of what do we call it? Destination weddings.
Yeah, because downtown's so much fun. You don't want to just come down for one day, for crying out loud.
It's fun, and it's not hard to get here. Not expensive.
And it's a middle ground. Lancaster's such a middle ground for, it's middle of everything.
It is. Everything fun and everything easy, and look at our restaurant scene.
Yeah, I know.
Wow,
I know.
I mean, it's not Amish and outlets anymore. Thank God.
No.
I mean, that's great that they're still there, but it's just so much.
Well, even downtown Lancaster. I mean, I used to spend a lot of time down here when I was in college. About 20 some years ago. But I used to date someone in Lancaster, so I spent a lot of time down here. But it was a different world.
Oh yeah. How long ago?
It was about 20 some years ago.
Totally different.
Downtown was not what it is now.
Now it's mushroomed into the magical.
It's just it's amazing what has happened in that amount of time. And downtown is so lovely.
Yeah, so much to do. And you don't have to tell your people, well, here's a list of, there's just the market, the whole scene with the hotels and the shopping.
You have everything you need here, and it's all easily accessible.
That it is, yeah.
And you're on social media as well?
We are. We have Facebook presence. We have Instagram presence. Excelsior Lancaster, PA on Insta. Excelsior Lancaster. That's all you have to do is to put the word Lancaster after.
We'll put them all in our comments below, and you can easily access them. Well, we really have enjoyed having you on. Thank you so much.
Likewise.
Everyone, once again, this is Kelly Dantinne. She owns the Excelsior. She owns the Water Gallery.
Water Gallery.
She's an artist. She's an author. She's all the things. We appreciate you being on with us today. Once again, this is the follow-up. Thanks for joining us today. And we'll see you next episode.
Thanks.
Bye, y'all.